You ready to do this, SA?
Yeah, man, let's get it started.
How you feeling?
Feel like I'm ready to talk about some football.
Feel like you put some numbers out there for the general public?
Yeah, man, I'm looking just to talk and have a good time, man.
Absolutely.
Live from the USA, it's the Fantasy Football Huddle with Sean Get Some Wilkie and Jake J-Stacks Lawson. Broadcasting around the world with up-to-date fantasy football news.
And here we go!
What's up, everybody? It's Jake Lawson, J-Stacks, with my man Sean Get Some Wilkie, and you are tuned in to the brand new show, the Fantasy Football Huddle. What's up, Sean?
How you guys doing out there? This
Yeah,
is going
man.
to be great, man. I can't wait to get this thing going.
So look, he's even brought us like some little. Look at these little dolls he's brought with him.
We just got these pops on the Amazon.
Look at this.
Russell Wilson and two of my favorite players, also Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, these two guys have started off to a great season, so we'll be talking about them and a lot of other names in this NFL fantasy season.
Yeah, it's a good point, man, and I'm glad that you brought these two because Russell Wilson is having an absolute sickening year so far. I mean, he's one of the top guys, not even just in the NFL, but he's one of the top players in fantasy too. So he's just
Right,
he's
yeah,
a
it's
phenom,
incredible
man.
that they're, as the saying out there in the internet world is saying, they're letting Russ cook this year
Yeah,
because obviously he's got two big weapons in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett now. You know, he can spread the field. So, I mean, and you can tell in this offseason that he's put in the practice with these players, you know,
Yeah.
and that's important. You know, they're out there and they're just destroying the field.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up DK Metcalf. Of course, last week, real close game between the Seahawks and the Cowboys, and the Seahawks were actually lucky to pull off the win. But you know, if anybody was watching, I mean, I know you and I had talked about it. I mean,
Right.
what about DK Metcalf? 5 yards out, just kind of jogging into the end zone.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Obviously, I mean, for me, it hurt even more because I got him on my fantasy team. Luckily, it didn't hurt me in the end, but I can't really know what he was thinking. I mean, the way Russell and Rodgers and they throw these balls, and even Patrick Mahomes, they drop it in with a nice projection.
Yeah,
I guess he maybe looked behind him and said, "Hey, the guy is not that close to me." Some cornerbacks give up, you know, like, "Oh, I got beat," so they don't like play completely out. But I'll give it to that defensive back. I forget his exact name, but man, he went behind him. Reminds me of the old John Beebe play back in
Yeah.
the Buffalo Bills with the lineman. He popped it right out, you know. In
well, and that guy
fantasy
was a
world,
rookie too, by the way. So
oh, he was.
yeah, so that just goes to show you that guy was
Oh, he's
like
playing
on
hard.
his hustle, you know.
Absolutely. And as we were saying, in the fantasy world, that costs you 2 points for the fumble, and then you lose to 6 points for the possible touchdown. So you lose 8 points in that one play.
Exactly. Man, absolutely insane with DK Metcalf. But it just goes to show you, like, Russell went back to him at the end of the game
Yeah, he did.
to get the winning touchdown, which, gave them the win. So,
Well, you got to go to your playmakers. You know, that's the key. And
Yeah.
like I was saying, he's got so many weapons now in Seattle. That's why they're one of my favorites for the NFC to win it this year because they also have old Greg Olson.
Yeah.
You know, and I was listening to a feed the other day, some people that I follow actually, and they saying, you know, even though he's older and he's not like the old Greg Olson like back when Cam was in his prime, but he's there for third downs when they need him. And he's there for the red zone targets. So now they have three big red zone targets, and they can run the ball.
right.
So I mean, the offense is something that's gonna be hard to stop. But they got to work on their defense too, which is ferocious.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, Seattle's defense wasn't that bad a few years ago, but they're definitely having some struggles right now. And I mean, every game to me seems like a barn burner, but they're really going to have to figure it out on defense if they're going to want to go all the way. Because
Sure.
as we've already seen just early in 3 weeks, I mean, NFC and AFC definitely have some stacked teams, and like some things just happen you don't expect. I mean, we were looking at the the Ravens game that just played, Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night.
Right.
Ravens actually favored to win the game, and then yet again they still can't get by the Chiefs, and the Chiefs carve up their defense like it was a Mickey Mouse defense. So
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing in that game. I remember we were going to try to get this podcast started last week. We obviously had some things come up. You weren't feeling good, and we wanted to make sure we got everything going in the proper way for all you guys out there following us now and hopefully in the future as we get better. Um, but a stat that I had ready for last week was, if you guys remember, the Chiefs played the Los Angeles Chargers last week, and it looked like the Chargers were going to win the game. Well, the first interesting thing that happened was Herbert is his last name for the Chargers.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, the
rookie quarterback. He was dove into the playbook right before game time. So first, you don't have Andy Reid or these guys being able to prep for him of what he's capable of doing. So I think that surprised the Chiefs defense, which they didn't give up a lot of points, but it also, I could see that the Chargers defense wasn't blitzing Patrick Mahomes that much.
Right.
Which, if you do that to him, which we can see in the Ravens game, he will burn you most of the time. I mean, I think he went 17 for 20, if I remember, in the Ravens game when they blitzed him. He either completed a pass, first down, or touchdown. But if you go back and look at the Chargers, which this could be a remedy for defending the Chiefs, maybe, or at least limiting them of what they can do. Try not to blitz the guy of that ability that much. And then maybe you can only give up 10 yards and then get close and only give up a field goal instead of a touchdown. Yeah, that's something to look into.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, of course, that's their MO. They're one of the most one of the defense that blitzes the most in the NFL. So, and it really cost them in this game against KC. Everybody's talking about Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Like, we saw it in our fantasy draft, pretty early on. We're in a super flex league, and those were the two guys. Every single league that we were in that was super flex, those were the two guys that went early because they're going to get points. I mean, obviously Mahomes looks like the guy. I mean, he's just got everything that you can think of, and regardless of the weapons, man, he's got the wherewithal. And Lamar, obviously he's got his legs and he's going to run. And a lot of people always are talking about these two guys, and we talked about this the other night. Like, well, they're not actually playing each other, even though Lamar wants to get the win against KC and Mahomes. What does Mahomes really got to do here? I mean, Lamar, moving forward, because they're both in the AFC. If we get down to the end, they're going to face each other again. Like, I feel like that's the road that it's going. That's an AFC matchup right there. What does Lamar really have to do, and what do the Ravens have to do to get over this hump with the KC?
In my opinion, obviously, if you look at the first quarter, go back and look at when they ran the ball the first drive, they drove the ball straight down the field, ended up eventually getting a field goal, but that's because they threw the ball 3 times in a row, trying to basically trick the Kansas City's defense. In my theory, and I've always watched this through years and years of watching football. Now, I may be correct, or it's just my opinion. But if you're good at doing something on offense, you keep doing that until the defense shows that they can stop you or slow you down.
Right.
Now, I do believe the Chiefs ultimately still would have won the game, but at least the Ravens would have been in contention. And then if you get a couple, like, say, turnovers, fumbles, that momentum shifts the whole game, they could eventually win the game maybe later in the season, like you're saying, because they're going to meet up again in the AFC. That's a given.
So, yeah.
I mean, what do we have? Those two. I don't even know who else in the AFC has a chance at this point. Maybe the Bills. They're playing great. You got Josh Allen out there slinging the ball.
New England, maybe.
New England, of course, with Belichick. He's always going to be in contention, especially with a weapon like Cam Newton. So I would say to the Ravens organization and our coaches, just do what you do best, and that's what every team should be doing on offense. Now, on defense, it's totally different because you have different defensive guys back there doing their job. So go back to what you do best. I mean, that's how I see it. Let Lamar Jackson run. Obviously, looks like he's being safe when he runs. He's not running straight into a linebacker. He's going to the sideline, get out of bounds, get to your next play. At least you got a first down. You got another opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Guys, if you're just tuning in, hit that share button. You're tuning into the new show here, the Fantasy Football Huddle, with myself, J-Stacks, and my man, Sean Wilkie. And we're going to be going over just a few things throughout this show. And hopefully every week we'll be bringing you some matchups, some key matchups as we go along. If you're in fantasy leagues like we are, like we're diehard into this stuff. So this is like perfect, right up our alley. So we'll give you some updates from the prior week, which we're going to go over here just in a few moments. And then we'll give you some studs and duds for week 4. And then we'll give you our projections on start 'em and sit 'em to finish out the show. So, who really did you like in week 3 that was a standout for you? I mean, there's a couple of guys for me, but who in
Obviously,
week 3 really
something
stood
that I
out?
really liked that was a change that happened. I'm going to go to a team that nobody's talking about right now. Is the Chicago Bears. I mean, obviously they played against the Atlanta Falcons, who somehow seemed to relinquish leads in the third and fourth quarters the last few weeks. But if you go back and look, when they made the change in quarterback to Nick Foles, he's somebody that has a winning mentality. I mean, he gets into the game, he reads the plays that his coaches put in, and he delivers the ball on target. I mean, it's somebody for me because I obviously have Allen Robinson, wide receiver, on my fantasy team. That's something that's going to pick up every week. And now their defense is, I don't know the exact number, but we're probably in like the top 6, 7 defenses in the league. And they just got back Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
So the Chicago Bears for me right now is exciting to watch because I've obviously been a huge Green Bay fan. It's somebody that you can't sleep on. They're not a guaranteed win when you play against the Bears. And now that they got Foles in there, I mean, look what he did for the Philadelphia Eagles that year. They went to the Super Bowl. We were here watching it at your house. It's like, is this really happening? Is Nick Foles putting up 40 points in the Super Bowl?
I mean, it's funny because you and I had this conversation because you were so big on Wentz back then,
right? Yep.
And I always kept trying to tell everybody like Foles is the real deal, you know.
And he was.
And I felt like he got a kind of a bad shake in Philly, and of course, when Wentz was healthy, they put him back in, and then of course, he got hurt again, so then Foles kind of finished it out. But he's a guy that really understands the offense, and you're seeing it again now, which is a little bit strange because according to the Chicago Bears, like he really didn't win the job in Chicago.
Sure.
With Trubisky, and Trubisky's still young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's remember, like he's still young, and that first year that he came in, he had a really good year with Chicago. I mean, what does this do to a guy like that? They bring him in, and now they're pulling him. He's not hurt. He's just sitting, and now you got Foles in. I mean,
sure. Actually, I feel like he's dealing well with it because I saw a recent podcast. Actually, it was an interview after the game, and they had mentioned that to him. And Nick Foles is the same kind of guy. When Foles was on the bench, he said, "Hey, I totally support Mitch. We're out there and we're just trying to give each other input. Maybe when a guy's in the field, he comes back to the bench and they talk about how the play could have went differently." And I think it's good. Obviously, it's sad that he lost his job, but ultimately they came back and won the game. And if you look up the podcast, Mitch was kind of okay with it, because ultimately I think he wants his team to win and have a chance to get to the playoffs and get past teams like, say, the Packers, Seattle, and maybe fight for that ultimate goal, which is a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah. Yo, Justin Mass, what's up, man? Want to say hi. Thanks for joining us and commenting in the stream. If you guys are watching and you have some questions about some players or somebody that you want us particularly to talk about, just drop it down there in the chat right there, and then and we'll try to get to it as you're going. But thanks for joining us, and make sure you hit that share button and tune in, man. We'll be here every Thursday. One of my main guys, I know you were talking about the Chicago Bears, and they were having a big deal, a big change over there with Foles. But, I mean, Dak Prescott.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not a Dallas fan absolutely at all, but, I'm a football fan. So, I can look at it, without being too judgmental because it's the team. But, I mean, this is a guy, right, who's gone through so many things contract-wise,
sure.
Where he's waiting to get paid. He sees Zeke get all the money, so, and this guy goes back and he's got 2 games back-to-back where in week 2 he puts up 450 points, passing yards, and then again He puts up 472 passing yards in week 3, and they lose.
Sure.
So this is a guy, like, if you've got him on your roster, you've got to start him every single week. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Dak is going to throw the ball because even if they're losing, you see he's putting up points. I mean, he had, 35 points last week in fantasy. So he's really a guy that I like. And of course, Russell Wilson, we talked about earlier. I mean, he's throwing 4 or
Of
5
course.
touchdowns a game. I mean, how can you not like this guy?
Yeah, I like that mention because, I mean, if you look at Dak, he's always had the talent, and he's got the ability to run the ball with his legs, just like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, etc. But now he has so many different weapons. He's got C.D. Lamb he just got from the draft. He has this, I forget the new guy that he was throwing the ball to this week. I haven't looked up his name, but I heard the guy got like 6 or 7 catches for almost 100 yards. And then you still have Amari Cooper. You got Zeke Elliott out of the backfield. So for something that involves fantasy points and stats, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for weapons.
Yeah.
And Dallas has it. But unfortunately, which could be a good thing for fantasy, Dallas's defense and Seattle's defense are not that great.
Yeah.
So they're going to be constantly either throwing the ball or fighting back that next quarter to get more points. And that's what you want to find in fantasy football. You don't want to have, like, say, players from the New York Jets because they're going to be struggling.
Yeah.
They're going to go 3 and out every 30 minutes of the game. Every 30% that they're out there on the field, you're not going to get more opportunities to get points. And that's what we're going to try to give to you guys. Obviously, like Jake said, any questions that you have, maybe on your lineups if you play fantasy football, as we continue this journey, this is our first week. We appreciate that. You can send a direct message to me on Facebook if you like. We'll try to get to it and give you the feedback. That's really what it comes down to in order to build your team.
Another guy I really want to talk about, and this is one of your favorites, and I actually like him too, but the man Aaron Rodgers himself.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, Aaron is just slinging it and slinging it and slinging it this
Boom.
year.
Boom.
Right? There you got it on the jersey there. I mean, the whole thing with Rodgers was, and we talked about this a little bit kind of before the season even started, with them. They should have went out, I think, and this is what he's thinking, right? They should have went out and drafted him maybe some more weapons. You know what I mean? On offense, receivers, whatever.
Sure.
But instead, they end up drafting a quarterback. And so, he felt some kind of way about it. And he's really making his presence known this year already to start with. I mean, he had 29 points. What did he have last week? 30 points last week, fantasy points. And, I mean, he's throwing for touchdowns. He's come back. He's making comeback wins. I mean, he really looks like the Aaron Rodgers that we all love from the very beginning.
Yeah, he's playing great. What I like about him and players like Patrick Mahomes, they can escape the pocket and then they twist and turn their bodies and get their shoulders straight to the pass, and they can throw with a jump pass. It's not something like players that are more traditional pocket passers like Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, players like that.
Yeah.
These guys like Rodgers and Wilson and Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, I mean, they can make a play out of nothing sometimes, and they make it look so easy. And I do believe that, as you were saying, the Packers should have got him more help. I think it actually pissed him off a little bit because they drafted a future quarterback. No disrespect to the guy that they drafted, but it just shows that Rodgers' love of the game. And I do believe they have a new coaching change. They have Matt LaFleur now. So I think his ability to communicate with the coach, you can tell, has been good for him.
Yeah.
Rodgers' mentality. Because now maybe he's out there and he's able to like the play calls that are coming in that help his strengths. And which I know to see is throwing the ball down the field. Rodgers enjoys doing that because you can tell he's like a kid out there on the field.
Yeah.
It's like backyard football. You're getting out there and I'm throwing it down the field to Alan Lazard because my number one wide receiver, Devontae Adams, is out.
Yeah.
Gee, he can throw it to anybody. It's just like Peyton Manning in his prime. My opinion was he could throw it to anybody that is open on the field. And that's the thing. They don't look for one specific guy, especially when the play breaks down.
Yeah.
You come around the pocket and you look up, and wherever defensive guy is not low on that receiver, you sling it to him. You get you some points, maybe a touchdown.
Yeah, it's a good point. Another guy I really like, and I know you like him too, is young Josh Allen at the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely.
I mean, he just threw for 4 touchdowns. He had 40-some fantasy points this past week. I really don't see anything slowing down for him. He's a guy I really like throughout the entire season. I know they barely just escaped by a 35-32 win against L.A., but Buffalo's defense is great, I think, for the most part.
Absolutely.
And this young guy definitely has some weapons now. And I really like Josh Allen. If you got him, you got to start this guy.
Yeah, I remember we did a couple of our fantasy drafts, and I got sniped. I was doing my studying for about 3 or 4 months, and Josh Allen was one of my number one guys that I wanted to try to get because I thought I could get him in like the third or fourth round, and people weren't paying attention. You know, they're going to take players like we've been talking about, the bigger names. But the addition of getting Stephon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings in the offseason to add to the Buffalo Bills was what I think they were missing. Because we saw it last year from Josh Allen. He had flashes in the pan of games where he put up three touchdowns and then maybe rush in two at the same time. But now that he has these weapons with Diggs where they can stretch the field, his ability is there, and you can see. And I love his energy when they do score and his excitement. You know, it's not just he runs to the bench. He runs to his players, congratulates them getting the touchdown, and then he's back at it. And you got to remember that I think they just played the Rams. Is that right?
Yeah.
I like how you were saying that I love the Buffalo's defense. They've always been top 10 in the league every year, regardless of not having a good quarterback, which they do have a good one now. But you also got to remember the Rams and Sean McVay offense is something that's, when it's in stride,
Yeah.
they are very hard to stop. And that's the reason that game ended up getting close because you got Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee as their tight end, and they got hot in like the second and third quarter, came all the way back. But as you say, Josh Allen was resilient, stayed in the game, threw the dagger touchdown to win, and they're 3-0 now, so you got to watch out for them.
Yeah, I like Goff. He's another good quarterback I like there, but there is some questions with the offense. I don't feel like that they're really firing on all cylinders. They really should have won that game against the Bills, and
Right.
a couple other guys I'm not really hot on, but did have good weeks. Was Fitzpatrick? He put up almost 30 fantasy points this year, but they were playing the Jags, and Jacksonville's got a terrible defense. True. But he's a guy we saw last year. Like as towards the end of the year came, I mean, he had a phenomenal like little run there at the end, and like I'm a believer sometimes in Fitz magic, but I'm wondering like how long can this happen? Because
Sure.
the offense aren't great. I mean, they have a couple good receivers, but I mean, there's the team. There's nothing really that jumps out special for me, and so I don't know that Fitzpatrick is the guy that's going to be able to continue down, this path with having big weeks.
I would say just be on the lookout for when he plays against a defense that's shaky.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like this week coming up, they actually play Miami plays Seattle, so that's a game that's going to be very high scoring. We obviously got Russell Wilson in his prime right now. I mean, he's already thrown 14 touchdowns in 3 games. But as you were saying, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a gunslinger.
Yeah.
And he has some weapons. He don't have as much as many as other teams. But he's got Devontae Parker. He's got that tight end, Mike Gesicki.
Oh, yeah.
Who everybody was real high on him coming into this season for tight ends. And I can see why. I fell short on trying to reach for him. But they have some weapons. They got Preston Williams as wide receiver. So if you guys got out there running routes and they're open, Fitzpatrick's going to get it to him. I mean, obviously, I got Seattle winning that game coming up this week, but I could easily see it being close, within a touchdown possibly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Some of the top running backs this past week, Alvin Kamara, absolute beast, 45 fantasy points. I mean, this is a guy you can't go wrong with. I mean, in most all of the drafts that were available, I mean, he's going early first round. To me, he is probably one of the top, if not the top running backs right now in the NFL. I like Kamara. I like Eckler. But one of the guys that we were talking about earlier is Robinson from Jacksonville. Even though they have a terrible team,
Right.
he still put up 30 some points. So this is a guy that, if you can flex him in, I definitely would get him in the lineup somehow, some way, especially if they're playing, a defense that's terrible on the run. And of course, my man Connor, who I've had on my team for 2 years in a row now, finally Pittsburgh's using him a little bit. So the way that he's supposed to be being used. So I feel good about Connor. He looks like he's healthy. If he's a guy that you have on your team, I figure at this point right now, moving forward, you got to start this guy almost every single week. I made a mistake and sat him in week 2 because he didn't have a really great week 1, and it bit
Sure.
me because he put up 20 some points. So Connor's a guy I like. Dalvin Cook, obviously, all these guys, Derrick Henry, like these are guys that went super early, not just in our draft, but in everybody's draft. And these are guys that are going to have to be in all the time. These are workhorses. But a guy that I like is Mike Davis right now. If you had some problems with McCaffrey, because he in most drafts he went number 1. In a few of ours he went number 1, but he's out. He's going to be out for like 4 or 5 weeks now.
That's a great pickup on the waiver wire this week.
For sure.
He was one of the main priorities. I remember, speaking of running backs and waiver wire pickups, I remember last week I lost Saquon Barkley in one of my leagues, New York Giants running back, and he was my number 1 pick. So I had to figure out something. So I like how you say that you picked up Mike Davis, because last week I did the same kind of thing, and I picked up Darrell Henderson, the running back for the Los Angeles Rams now. And it was something I had to do because I'm good at receivers. I got like 3 good receivers, tight end, quarterback, but I needed that second running back behind. I also have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I didn't know what to do because nobody was going to trade me a running back unless I gave away one of my go receivers. So I'm sacrificing my spots. And I did the same kind of thing. I went on a waiver wire and I said, all right, who's going to fill in this void for a player that's out? And that's what you need to look for when you're trying to find points to balance out your roster. So Mike Davis is a good one. I like you said, Darrell Henderson. Trying to think another good one right now that you can look into is, I can't remember his name. Obviously, a lot of people already have Justin Taylor for Indianapolis. Now he's going to be a workhorse because the same kind of thing that happened. Marlon Mack got hurt early in the season, so now every week he's going to be carrying the ball for the Indianapolis Colts, who manage the clock good and they have good defense. So that's the thing you want to find when you have a running back, that they're going to be on the field and actually getting carries.
Yeah, Justin had a good point in the chat. He said that fantasy advice for the year: start whoever's playing the Jets and Washington. Now, I will disagree with one of those. I would say yes, anybody that's playing the Jets, because they're absolutely horrific right now.
Right.
I would start everybody that plays the Jets. But Washington's defense is actually okay this year, and the jury's still kind of out for me. Obviously they played Philly and they came back and won, which was pretty surprising. They have not done that thus far, since week 1. But on paper, Washington's defense is pretty good. So it's kind of still up in the air. So that's a defense I'd try to probably stay away from right now, because you just don't know which way it's going to go. But, yeah, I definitely agree with you, Justin. I would start anybody playing the Jets right now.
Yeah, I like what you said. I mean, their secondary is not great, Washington, but they do have a pretty good run defense. I mean, it's way above average in the league. We got 32 teams. So, I mean, if they're in the top 15, that's something that's okay for fantasy. It's not something that's going to hurt you in the long run. So that's some things you want to look into when you're looking up your stats. Like, you're starting this running back, let's say, for instance, we'll go into like our studs and duds for the week. When we're talking about running backs, you want to find somebody that's playing against the defense that's terrible or lower of the pack of the industry. in the league. And somebody I really like this in coming up in week number 4 is Kenyon Drake from the Arizona Cardinals. They're going up against Carolina. And it's a defense that's given up on an average 43 points total to running backs. So Kenyon Drake is the main guy in Arizona. And
I really like Drake.
Yeah, then they also have Kyler Murray. So if they can't stop the run with running backs, what are they going to do against Kyler Murray and Kenyon Drake at the same time? So he's my stud for running back this week.
How funny was it with Drake last year? He's playing for the Dolphins, does absolutely nothing with them, then gets traded to Arizona, and then just goes off. I think the first game he went off for like 4 touchdowns.
Right.
And it was just nonsense after that with him. So, like, this is a guy that's super, super talented, and in the right scheme, I mean, he definitely is going to produce. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. He's a stud, Kenyon Drake. My stud, one of the guys that I like is a rookie quarterback, Joe Burrows for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals aren't great, but I really like Burrow. He's had 2 300-yard games in 2 games with multiple touchdowns, and so I really kind of expect that to happen as he's going into playing terrible team Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's my stud.
That's funny that you say that that's your stud of the week. He was actually my start of the week. We'll go into that a little bit later in the section here. For that main reason. I mean, Joe Burrow going up against the Jaguars defense, who is struggling this year, and he has weapons. I mean, I was talking to you earlier today about this, trying to trade away my waiver wire pickup for this week, which is wide receiver T. Higgins. He had, I believe, not a lot of catches, maybe 5 catches for like 70 yards.
Oh, T. Higgins.
And 2 touchdowns. Now, the reason this is happening because their main receiver is Tyler Boyd. He's their number 1 target guy. He gets like on an average 8 to 10 targets a game. Yes, they still have A.J. Green, but he's up there in age, and I would say he's just not athletic as he used to be with the couple injuries that he's, came upon him in the last few years. So you want to look at guys that are young, fresh, and want to get out there on the football field and play hard. Yeah. So having these 3 weapons, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green, and also you got Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield against a defense like the Jaguars, I think it's a great start this week. So I appreciate that stud there, Duds. I want to go on to my next stud of the week. And it is for my quarterback, and this is going to be something that's going to surprise you because I've been very high on the New Orleans defense. And coming into this league, I was really high on them, but it seems like they're struggling. So for my stud of the week, it's Matthew Stafford this week against the New Orleans Saints.
Interesting.
Detroit Lions quarterback. So as you see last week, they've been running Adrian Peterson a good bit from the Lions, which I think is great for their momentum on offense. Yeah, he's not going to get 100, 150 yards like he used to in his prime. But Matthew Stafford also got back wide receiver Kenny Galladay last week. They still have Marvin Jones.
Yeah.
And they have a great tight end in T.J. Hockenson. And he is also on my tight ends I like this week because of New Orleans defense. And you got to remember, Stafford's just like players like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He loves to sling the ball if he knows he has the opportunity against the defense this week. So that's my stud at quarterback.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned him at quarterback because my other stud this week is tight end Hockenson.
Nice pick
for the Detroit Lions. The Saints have given up the most fantasy points to tight ends thus far, and Hockenson's had 53 points in every single, at least 53 yards, in every game that he's played thus far. So I really, really like him in this matchup. And I think the ceiling is pretty high for this guy in this game. So if you guys are having problems or issues with tight ends,
right,
Hockenson is my pick this week to start.
I love that because, like I said, with getting Kenny Galladay back, it's going to open up the middle of that field. Because Galladay is going to be on the right running, say, slants or go routes. Then you got the reception receiver, Marvin Jones. I think this offense is going to have a great week against the Saints.
All right, man, let's take a look at duds. Who's your duds for the week?
Ah, man. Let's see. My first dud of the week. Let's go to a different position. And
Justin Mass says Washington's defense isn't bad. The reason it says that is because how bad their offense. Yeah, I get it. Teams are going to have a lot of opportunities against Washington's defense. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point, Justin. Their offense is terrible.
Right.
But,
Yeah. So they're going to relinquish the ball a lot to the other team.
yeah.
Good point.
All right, who's your
my
duds
dud?
this
Let's
week?
go to receivers. And for some reason, I couldn't pick an exact guy, so I went with like a receiving core that I don't like this week. And it's the receiving core that's going up against the Kansas City's defense. Obviously, we saw what they just did to the Baltimore Ravens. I believe Lamar Jackson threw for less than 100 yards, if I'm correct, maybe like 97 yards in the whole game, obviously because he was using his feet early in the half. But I'm going to go with the receiving core of the New England Patriots. And for this reason, Kansas City obviously is going to have the ball tons on offense because they stretch the field, they control the clock, they have Patrick Mahomes. And if you pay attention to coaching schemes and competition based surfaces, Andy Reid versus Bill Belichick. What is Bill Belichick going to do? He's going to try to limit their weapons. So Andy Reid's going to do the same kind of thing. And if you go back, and I looked at a couple stats here recently, Kansas City's only given up 25 points per game to a total receiving core. That's not just the one player, the main guy. That's the whole core. So you could have 2 to 4 players out running routes. They're only giving up 25 points total. So that's what I'm going to go with. I don't think the receiving core of New England's that great anyways right now, that is compared to in the past years. I mean, I do still have Julian Edelman. He's actually banged up a little bit right now. He's been playing, but he's not at 100%. So I think Bill Belichick's going to use their strengths, use their run game like they did last week. Rex Burkhead had 3 touchdowns. Sonny Michel had a good game, had about 80, 90 yards. And, of course, you got the willing great in Cam Newton, who could run the ball at any time, especially when they're close. So I do believe that the receiving core is going to be limited this week coming up.
Well, I'm going way out on a limb here, and this really kind of goes about what Justin was talking about earlier in Washington and the fact that I'm not really 100% sold on Washington's defense yet either way, whether they're good or bad. But my duds for the week, you had the receiving crew. I'm saying the running crew for the Baltimore Ravens. I think Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, these are 2 guys that you want to sit. And because I just don't know how I feel about Washington's defense. They are good against the run.
Yep.
And until we get a little bit further into the season, we're not really going to know. And since they're using running back by committee in Baltimore, I don't really think if you got Ingram or Dobbins, these are 2 guys I think they're going to be duds this week. Although I do think Baltimore is going to get the win over Washington, of course. I don't think that they're going to score high in fantasy football points as far as the running backs are concerned.
I love that call because actually one of my stud tight ends is Mark Andrews from Baltimore. Same kind of scenario in the game. They're not going to be able to run like they want with their running backs, like you're saying. So they're going to go to the pass, and their strongest pass catcher is Mark Andrews, especially across the middle, where you can find the weakness in the Redskins secondary. Great call, Jake. I like that. Let me go to one of my last studs, and then we'll try to move on to something different for a couple minutes. No, actually, I already did my stud of quarterback. I have to do my dud, which this is a great one for the week. I was just talking about the Chicago Bears a little while ago about their defense. Now, they recently just got back the defensive end. What's his name?
For who?
Mack.
Marlon Mack?
No, the defensive end for the Chicago Bears.
Oh, yeah.
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack.
They just got him back last week, and you can tell they were easing him into gameplay. But the reason the Bears had a chance to come back on Atlanta Falcons is because they did limit Atlanta to multiple 3 and outs, 4 and outs in the second half, and gave Nick Foles the ability to come back. Now they're going to go up this week against the Indianapolis Colts, against a quarterback who is known for throwing interceptions in clutch situations. So Phillip Rivers is my sit of the week because Chicago at this moment is giving up 12 points on an average to quarterbacks. Now that's something you don't want to have on your fantasy team. Even if you have a super flex, I would actually recommend instead of in your second super, say you have Phillip Rivers as your second quarterback, don't put him in your flex. Find a receiver or another running back that can give you an opportunity to have more of a boom game instead of a bust game that we're going to have from Phillip Rivers this week.
Yeah, that's a good one. My dud for the week, my quarterback is Justin Herbert. I went on our page earlier and said last week I was high on this guy. He came in and really had a good week.
He surprised the Chiefs.
Yeah.
He definitely did that week.
Yeah, he had a good week, and they had a chance to win actually.
They should have won.
Yeah. And so I really like this young guy, and I think that he has the ability to be good, and I think that he will be good at points during the season and definitely get you some fantasy points. But I have to say that the Bucs pass rush, they are for real.
They're playing good.
This is one of those matchups where you want to take the player versus the defense and really kind of analyze it. And I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way with the Bucs defense playing as well as they are with the pass rush. My dud is Justin Herbert for the week.
Sure. I like that. And like you were saying, I mean, when you're going up against a defense like that, and you also have Tom Brady on the other side of the ball, who's a great clock manager. You know, maybe he's not going to get the opportunities that he did with the Chiefs. And I do like how you're saying his future is going to get better and better by week. You know, he's a rookie, so it's going to be something he's getting used to. Who he can throw the ball to, like Keenan Allen, tight end Hunter Henry. Obviously, last week I saw a big bright sign for Austin Eckler.
Yeah,
I think he caught like 10 to 11 passes. So that offense is going to gradually get better. Just be careful when they can be duds against a defense like this, especially a defensive front going against a rookie who doesn't understand the speed that an NFL defensive line can give you compared to a college defensive line. I like that.
Well, good point there, guys. Don't forget you're watching the Fantasy Huddle with J-Stacks and Get Some Wilkie. We'll be bringing you fantasy football news every Thursday, so tune in somewhere around this time, like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So make sure that you're tuned in with us. One of the next things I want to talk about, and this is really kind of important because we were talking about maybe the fantasy season not even happening. You know, what do you do if that happens? And then as we're going into this week, already 4 players have tested positive for COVID with the Tennessee Titans, along with 5 of their personnel. And now the game is going to be postponed.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about your feelings on that and how it could affect your fantasy plays going into this week.
Yeah, obviously, it's a tough situation. We obviously don't want to see anybody test positive because it's a struggle. They got to get through it, and we got to go through quarantine and stuff like that for 2 weeks. So, luckily, it looks like none of the main offensive players that are on these teams did not test positive. The only thing that we need to be on the lookout for is, are they going to play the game? Now, they're telling us in the news and articles that it's either going to be, like you said, Monday or Tuesday. So if you have, say, players like, Pittsburgh and Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we're going to have players like Ben Roethlisberger, James Conner,
Tannehill,
Derrick Henry, Juju Smith-Schuster, all the receivers, Deontay Johnson. I don't believe A.J. Brown's coming back this week, but you got like Corey Davis. There's another receiver. Oh, we got the tight end for Tennessee. You got Jonnu Smith, which is a player that I have on a few of my teams. I just recommend that you pay attention to the news. I've got confirmation from the apps like NFL.com. That's ones we play our leagues mostly on. They said that when it is scheduled, you'll see the time next to the player's name that they will be playing Monday or Tuesday. Now, if you have a better option on your bench, for this week, I might recommend that you take a shot at doing something else, especially if it's a player that's, say, projected to score about the same amount as that player that might be in these games. Go ahead and do it, because you don't want to risk losing your week if we don't play these games. So, I mean, it's a hard situation to be in. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously NFL's come out and said Monday or Tuesday that they're moving into, so like part of me feels kind of safe there if they land on a definitive date, whether they say yes, it's going to be a doubleheader on Monday, or Tuesday, which I would love because it's an extra day of football,
Sure.
then I'd feel safe about starting my guys. The only issue is something that we didn't really talk about is the fact that none of the players are allowed into the facility to practice right now because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to come into play, I believe, a little bit as well. So these are some of the things that you should take into consideration when you want to start these players. I mean, they're not going to have a full week of practice like normal, and so
Right.
mainly it's going to be a lot of game time studying, and then whatever type of training they're doing on their own outside the facility. So these are some of the things that I probably would keep in the back of my mind. Whether I'm going to start them or I'm going to sit these guys. I have Juju Smith-Schuster on my roster, so this is a guy that I'm kind of a little bit worried about. He's not been having. He's had a couple of good games, but he's nothing super explosive yet.
Sure.
So I'm wondering now you're going into this time where you're having all these issues, you can't practice, and then also you may not play. So you just gotta have to play it by ear. If you have another guy that you can start on Monday, then it's okay to keep him in your roster, I think, and then switch him out at the last minute. But if you have other options, if you have better players that you think are going to perform better, then I would go ahead and put them in your lineup now.
That's a good point.
And not risk it at all.
That's funny that you were actually talking about this specific game, Pittsburgh versus Tennessee, because I had a bold prediction on one of my duds this week, and it's actually running back Derrick Henry. Because if you look at the Pittsburgh defense, especially their run defense, it's they're giving up only 16 points a game to the run defense. And yes, I get it. Derrick Henry's a monster. He's a giant of a human. But if you look back to a couple of their games, Tennessee, they're scoring a lot of points. But he's only had one game where he had 2 touchdowns. The other games, it's Ryan Tannehill slinging it down the field, trying to stay within the game. And I think going up against a defense like Pittsburgh this week, it's going to be a last-second game that they possibly play. If you have a second option at running back, I highly recommend, as a bold prediction, to just go ahead and play that guy this week. You have plenty of time to play Derrick Henry next week and get him rolling. So let's go ahead and sit Derrick Henry this week.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys, let's move on to probably the most important part of this segment is who should you start and who should you sit in week 4. We're not going to go through everybody, but I'm going to give one player from each position, and Sean will also give one player from each position, and then maybe we talk about like a little sleepers as we wrap up.
Sure.
And but this would be some good information.
All right, well, you go ahead and go first since I just talked about my last segment.
All right, well, so we'll start in the quarterback section first. My stardom this week is Aaron Rodgers. He's a man on a mission.
Nice pick.
I'm sold with Aaron. I'm glad you're wearing the shirt. I know you're a huge Packers fan.
I always have been. Definitely.
And I've always liked Aaron Rodgers, and I'm with him, man. Like I'm just the whole thing. I'm with him. The guy is pissed off. Yep. He's mad, and he's playing like he's mad. So keep this guy in your lineup.
And they're playing Atlanta this week,
and
right?
They're playing Atlanta.
Oh, that's amazing.
Atlanta, by the way, we were just talking about this earlier. Atlanta had given up like 3 or 4 games where they led by more than 17 points.
Yep.
And so I don't know what's going on with the Atlanta Falcons, but there is definitely something wrong in the coaching department.
Sure.
We can even go way back to when they lost the Super Bowl. I mean, just mismanagement of the clock. So I feel safe with anybody playing the Atlanta Falcons because of the way that their defense is playing right now. They play like 2 quarters of football, and then they just forget what they're doing. But my man Aaron Rodgers, if you got him, you got to put him in this week. That's my start for quarterback.
That's a great pick, Jake. As you were saying that, Atlanta's averaging 33.4 fantasy points to quarterbacks this week. So, and then you bring in the hottest offense in the league. They've actually scored more points than Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of people don't know that. It's not by a lot. I think it's by like 10 points. But Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, I mean, they're just a great combination right now on offense. And what a great domination pick right there. I love it. All right, so let's say we're going into our stardom of the week. And my quarterback start of the week is, I think you already talked about this guy. Actually, you talked about Joe Burrow. He was your stud.
Yeah,
one of your studs of the weeks.
for sure.
So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that one right now since we already talked about it. I love that, of course, because of the targets he has and they're going up against Jacksonville's defense. So let's go into another one real quick. I'll look at what I'm seeing. And surprisingly, I really don't want to do this because I'm not a huge fan of this player.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield this week because they're playing against the Dallas Cowboys defense. I mean, you're looking for advantages on the defensive side. And yes, I get it. It doesn't look like Odell Beckham is starting off to a great year. And in my honest opinion, Jarvis Landry is still banged up with something. He's playing, but you can tell he's not as explosive as he used to be, especially last year. But you got to take in consideration the two weapons they have in the backfield. They got Kareem Hunt coming out of the backfield, and they got Nick Chubb, who will run the ball straight down the belly of any defense. So I believe, because I know Dallas's offense is going to score points, Baker's going to have the ability to throw the ball this game, and he's going to have open windows. So this is going to be my start of the week. It's something that I actually have a hard time swallowing, but if you
Well,
have,
Dallas ranks 30th against quarterbacks
yeah,
right
so I
now,
mean,
so you got
it just
to
looks
think.
great.
And Mayfield throws a lot of passes. I mean, he's attempted 46 passes in just 2 games, so he's going to be slinging the ball anyways.
Sure.
So I like the pick.
Especially say they go down by 14, 20 points early. Now he gets to throw the ball to two great weapons, in my opinion. Odell Beckham Jr. is still a star athlete. Jarvis Landry, and I forgot this, I just thought about it. They have tight end Austin Hooper now. So they have literally 5 star athletes if you count the 2 running backs, and he has the ability to do it against Dallas's defense. So go on to your
I like it.
start of the week for the running backs.
Yeah, so Mike Dallaire just said Odell just went on injury report with a back injury and wouldn't have been my wide receiver to start of the week. Yeah, that's a good one, Mike. Thanks for adding that in. You know, OBJ struggled last year and is struggling again this year. I mean, it's just not what's expected. But I do like Sean's pick with Mayfield. My sit-em for the week in the quarterback arena is Derek Carr. The reason why I like sitting Derek Carr here is because they're playing the Buffalo Bills. We just talked about how good their defense is. They rank 21st against quarterbacks. And Derek Carr has really been kind of struggling so far anyways. So I really like to sit this guy here. Actually, Derek Carr's on one of my teams, and I don't think I've started him once. And so this is a guy that I definitely think you got to sit him this week.
Yeah, that's going to be more of a game strategy for Josh Jacobs. I mean, Buffalo Bills' run defense is not top of the league, so I think they're going to use more Josh Jacobs than Derek Carr throwing it around this week. And as you say, he lost a couple weapons here recently. I think Henry Ruggs is still banged up a little bit. He's their rookie wide receiver from Alabama. So I do like that pick.
Yeah, I mean the other reason is he only went for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns just 1 week, and that was in week 2 against the Saints, and really hasn't done anything since then. And you know, he's without Brian Edwards, who's got an ankle problem, and then of course Henry Ruggs, you know, the young rookie, is fighting a hamstring issue. So there's definitely some issues there on the offense, and that's why I like sitting Derek Carr this week.
Good pick. I like it. So now we're on to my sit for quarterback. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Well, this is a pretty easy one for me, even though I'm going up against San Francisco's defense. I'm going to sit Carson Wentz this week for two main reasons. Obviously, we're going to talk about this a lot. Our start him and sit him column. You want to look at a defense that will limit the player. So San Francisco, even though they've had some tough injuries this year, I believe they lost 4 or 5 defensive guys, Nick Bosa being one of them. Richard Sherman's out with a head injury or something. I might be wrong on that. But Carson Wentz doesn't have the weapons that were normally healthy for him. Alshon Jeffrey might back be this week, but I don't think it's going to happen. Deshaun Jackson got hurt. Their main weapon is Miles Sanders, and that's coming out of the backfield. So, yeah, if he throws a couple passes, he might get a touchdown from Miles Sanders or Zach Ertz. But if you look at the San Francisco's defense, they're only giving up 15 points a game to quarterbacks. So that's somebody I'm going to sit this week, Carson Wentz.
All right, why don't you lead us off on who you like to start at running back?
My
Who's your stardom
my
this week?
start of the week. Well, it's obviously going back to a game that we've already talked about, of course. But I got to start Aaron Jones. I mean, who wouldn't start the guy? I mean, playing against Atlanta's defense, he's going to put up similar numbers that he did in week 2, where he put up, I believe, 40 fantasy points. He may not go off that much because, like you said, Aaron Rodgers is going to have the opportunity to attack Atlanta's secondary. But why can't they both gel together? I mean, he could throw a little screen pass to Aaron Jones and go for a 30, 40-yard touchdown. That's my prediction for this week, Aaron Jones.
I like it. Of course, I love Aaron Jones because he's on my team, so more power to it. I like my stardom for running back this week, and I have been fighting with this. We talked a little bit about this last night because I'm like, I got to get this guy in my lineup. How do I get him in my lineup? It's going to be Mike Davis, the backup running back for Christian McCaffrey. We talked a little bit about him earlier. The guy can hold his own.
Sure.
You know, we already saw he had 13 carries, so they gave him the ball in week 3. He only had 46 yards, but what was most impressive is the catches out of the backfield. So he was targeted 8 times for 45 yards out of the backfield. So this is a guy that,
Sure.
he's filling in obviously for the number 1 draft pick in every draft ever, this year, which is Christian McCaffrey. An absolute beast, and he's doing a really good job. But they're going up against Arizona. Arizona ranks 19th against the running backs, so I think the matchup is really good as well. So my pick to start running backs this week is Mike Davis. If you got him on the waiver wire, you got to find a way to get him in. I like Mike Davis.
Great
here.
call there. And that's something that, a lot, you're not going to hear a lot from most people. Like for me, I picked obviously a big name in Aaron Jones, but mainly because of the defense they're playing against. So I do like that move because it's Carolina. They're possibly going to be playing from behind, and they have a lot of schemes already called up for Christian McCaffrey. So Mike Davis, what's he going to do? He's just going to run that route, catch the ball, and get fantasy points. I like it.
All right, let's go to your sit-em running back for the week. Who do you got?
Well, this is one that's going to be a little different, but I'm going to go and sit Ronald Jones from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Los Angeles Chargers. Main priority is the Chargers' run defense is actually, I don't know the exact rank, but they're only giving up 18 points on an average to running backs, and that's a running back committee. That's not just one guy. So say you got 2 running backs in the backfield, which the Tampa Bay Bucks do. They have Ronald Jones and they have Leonard Fournette. Now, it seems like they've been hot and cold of which guys get more carries. 2 weeks ago, Fournette had 2 touchdowns and not a lot of yards, maybe like 50 yards, but he was the guy who was getting the work in the end zone. Now, Ronald Jones last week averaged about 10 points, I believe, but they also just lost Chris Godwin at wide receiver. He's going to be out this week.
Yeah.
So I do believe because of the Chargers' defense and the reassurance of their quarterback in Herbert, it's going to be a game where I don't believe Brady or that offense is going to have a lot of time to score points. It's going to have to be like quick shots to Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Gronk. I don't believe that run game is going to be any good this week.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you say start him to Ronald Jones because my sit-em for the week is on the same team, Leonard Fournette.
Oh, there you go. We'll sit the whole committee.
Just set the whole committee, and the reason why is because what you talked about earlier. The Chargers are actually ranked 5th against running backs in the NFL right now, and Fournette really didn't overtake Ronald Jones in Week 3. Against Denver, as I think everybody kind of expected as he's easing in, and Jones actually played 51% of the snaps to just 37% of what Fournette was in. So the fact of the matter is that I really don't trust him yet. We know that Fournette in the past has been a great running back in Jacksonville, but I still think they have some things to work out between him and Jones in the committee, and now you're going up against the Chargers defense as well. I don't like it at all. I think you stay away from both of them. You sit Leonard Fournette this week as well.
I like it, of course. That's funny that we ended up having the same committee but 2 different names. It's interesting. But that just shows we're putting in our work. All right, so I'm going to go on to my sit of the week at wide receiver.
Oh, you got to go to your start.
Oh, I got to go to my start?
Yeah, your
Okay, we're
start of the
going back
week.
and forth.
Your
Oh, I'm sorry.
start of the week.
All right, my start of the week at wide receiver is somebody that obviously I'm picking on Seattle's defense again yet here. I'm going to take Devontae Parker, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Because of what we were talking about, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a gunslinger, and his favorite target is Devontae Parker. So this is going to be pretty simple. I'm not going to say a lot about it. I do believe Parker's probably going to get in the vicinity of 7 to 10 targets. Let's go with 6 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. So in fantasy, that's going to give you 6, 7, 13, a touchdown, 23 points. I mean, no, wait a minute, 20 points. And getting that from your number one spot or your second spot at a wide receiver is great. So let's go with Devontae Parker.
Yeah, I like that pick. Seattle ranking 32 against wide receivers. So definitely a good pick there. And the way that Fitzpatrick's playing right now, obviously that's their main target in Miami. So definitely a good pick. I like Devontae Parker there. All right, my guy, and this is probably a little biased because he's on my team, but I'm definitely going here with Will Fuller. He's my start
He's
of the
going to have a
week.
bounce back week, you
I
think,
think
huh?
he's going to have a bounce back week.
Okay.
I like Will Fuller. They're playing Minnesota. Minnesota is 29th ranked against wide receivers currently right now. So I really feel good about him. Not to mention the fact that not only are they playing the Minnesota's defense that's really bad in the pass defense, but the Texans are 0-3. Like, they must have the hardest schedule, I think, and we talked about this to the start of the season. They play KC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh.
Right.
They lose all 3 games. I do not see them losing a 4th game and going 0-4 here. I don't know. I think Houston is probably favored here against Minnesota. I think they get the win,
Right.
and I think Fuller goes off. I think he has a big game this week. And I think Watson goes off too. These guys are probably pissed from being 0-3. My start of the week for wide receiver, Will Fuller.
I like it. I'm going to talk a little bit about that game since you bring it up. I do believe that's going to be a high-scoring game because if you look at the Minnesota Vikings, also at 0-3, they're both going to be fighting for their first win of the year. And if you look back at last week, I don't believe I remember mentioning this guy, but their rookie wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, for the Minnesota Vikings had a great week. He had 7 catches, 175 yards, and a touchdown. So you're going to have both quarterbacks slinging it downfield, and the Will Fuller pick is nice. I like that.
All right, so who's your sit-em for wide receiver this week?
All right, my sit of the week. This is a pretty easy one. It's actually a player that I see that has been struggling this year already anyways, and now they're going up against the Arizona's defense, and my sit of the week is wide receiver DJ Moore for the Carolina Panthers. It's just an offense that is not quite clicking as like they would want to, especially with losing Christian McCaffrey, even though Mike Davis is going to be a complimentary backup, but he can't do the certain things that Christian McCaffrey does, and it seems like, for my honest opinion, they're not getting the targets to DJ Moore in open space to where he is a weapon. As you see last year, he was getting targets from I can't remember their quarterback's name that they had last year. Kyle Allen.
Yeah.
Because now they have Teddy Bridgewater. It seemed like last year Kyle Allen was getting DJ Moore into the space where he can use his athletic ability. So this week against Arizona, which he's going to go up against Patrick Peterson, which is top 5 still in the league at cornerback. It's going to be a tough sledding week, so I would sit DJ Moore.
So we got a question from somebody who is in the chat, also in our fantasy league. So this would be, we'll give you good advice here, Mike.
Who is it?
It's Mike Rankin. He asked, is Freeman in New York worth picking up?
Absolutely not. I actually picked him up last week and dropped him already. There was some news out there of him getting into the mold and starting. But you got to think, I mean, they're going to pick a guy up off the street, coming from his house, and starting over other guys like Gallman and Deion Lewis. I mean, those guys are the guys who were on the team in preseason. So my honest opinion is, if he ever is somebody worth picking up, see how he does in the next 3 to 4 weeks. It's not going to be something that's going to be instant. That's my opinion.
There you go, Mike. Straight from the commission's mouth. All right, my this one is a little hard for me. My sit-em for the week, and is actually part of my bust alert here, is my man from the Washington football team, Terry McLaurin.
Ooh,
Yeah, they're playing Baltimore, so I mean it's
yeah,
it's
that's
super
true.
super tough. This is their only guy. I think this is their Dwayne Haskins' main receiver. I feel like a lot of players like Saquon. I feel like obviously he's injured, but if he'd play on any other team other than the Jets,
Yeah,
this guy is a superstar.
that's very true.
And I kind of feel that way with Terry McLaurin. I mean, if he was on any other team, like you put him with Green Bay, this guy is just an absolute monster. He's super fast. He's got great hands, and his ability to break tackles and make moves in open field is good. But I just don't like him against Baltimore. I think Baltimore is going to have a real chip on their shoulder from losing to Kansas City this past week.
Right.
And I think that they're just going to come in and they're just going to just manhandle everybody in Washington, on that offense. So for me, I don't like the matchups. He's not been playing particularly great, and the Ravens haven't even allowed a receiving touchdown in the first 2 weeks of the season. So I don't like the matchup. So I say sit Terry McLaurin this week.
Good pick. Good pick. I like it. I mean, the only thing that could happen is garbage time. Like, say the Ravens are up by 20. I mean, he might get a couple catches in the fourth quarter, but I do like that strategy that you come up with behind. Because, I mean, the Ravens, they're going to be so pissed off. I mean, I do believe if they're up by a lot, they could also just run the clock out by running the ball with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson in the second half. I mean, it could be a slaughter fest.
Yeah. All right. Who do you like starting at tight end this week?
I actually had one on here that we already talked about, so I'm trying to find another one real quick. The one I had on here was T.J. Hawkinson. You had already mentioned him, obviously, because of going up against New Orleans defense and the weapons with them adding Kenny Galladay back from off injury reserve. So let me look real fast. I had another one that I wanted to mention. I'm trying to remember.
Well, I'll give you mine while you think about
Yeah,
it.
go ahead. Go ahead. That would fill in the void. Thank you.
That way you don't steal mine.
Yeah, okay. That works good.
My tight end of the week is my guy on my team, and I drafted him, is Noah Fant. I like
Great
this
pick.
guy. Denver is not a great football team right now, but they did make a switch at quarterback.
Yep.
So, obviously Driscoll now is out, and they're bringing in the quarterback Brett Rippon. And we don't really know too much about this guy, but typically what happens is, you're handing off the ball and you're throwing to your tight ends.
Sure.
Noah Fant has had 3 pretty decent weeks. The first 2 weeks were excellent. This is a guy that I had targeted in my draft. I was glad that he fell to me, and he's really surprising me because he's putting up better numbers than some of these top tight ends, like Ertz and of course, Kittle's been hurt and stuff like that. But I really like him. I think Denver is obviously they're playing. We talked about this earlier. They're playing the Jets, so you got to start everybody that's playing against the Jets. I like Noah Fant. If you got him in your lineup, you got to start him here. I think he's going to get tons of targets, and he has the ability to have a monster game come Thursday
I like
night.
it. I've been watching a couple of his highlights recently, last few weeks, for possibly trade targets later in the year, of course, because I don't have him on any of my teams.
Yeah.
But you can see the guy runs great routes, and he's huge. So something that's what you need at tight end. That's a good pick. I'm going to go on and go. This is something I really don't like. Like I said, T.J. Hawkinson was my pick, so don't ever forget him. Get him in all your lineups this week. But I'm going to go ahead and go with the game that we were talking about earlier that possibly will be Monday or Tuesday. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Tennessee game, and I like Eric Ebron this week because it seems like the Steelers are starting to use him more and more in the offense. And if you guys remember last year when Ebron was with the Indianapolis Colts, another veteran quarterback in Phillip Rivers, the guy is just a hell of a football player when you get the ball to him. So I think Roethlisberger is starting to feel more comfortable with him in the offense. And I remember they had a slight injury to Deontay Johnson, their rookie receiver. So I think that's just going to open up the middle of the field and more reception opportunities for Eric Ebron, especially as we were saying, James Conner doesn't have a great run defense matchup. He's still going to get his work, but Eric Ebron is my pick for the week at tight end.
I like it. He's one of my sleeper picks for this week, so we definitely can agree on that. Mike Rankin says, thanks for the fantasy beatdown last week, Jake. Hey, my man, you're welcome. You weren't the only one that got the beatdown because I gave it to somebody else too. So
that is great.
And
man, I'll tell you.
I plan on handing out some more. So
yeah, me too. I mean, it's amazing. This fantasy football for all you guys out there watching that don't play and you might be interested in playing. Find a group of guys or gals, whoever you want in with you, and just enjoy the season. Get out there and nag each other. Talk about the players that you like and don't like. I mean, when they all show up for us and we have a great week, we're scoring. Well, I don't know. So we play in a Superflex league. For instance, let's talk about that real quick, Jake. They'll give us something to mention. This is the first year. I'm actually the commissioner of both leagues. I've been doing leagues, I guess now for about 8 years. I've been in one with Jake. You've been in my leagues for possibly about 4 or 5 years now.
4 or 5 years.
And we recently moved to a Superflex league, what that means is our roster positions have the availability of starting 2 quarterbacks now instead of just one, which was in previous years. So when you're at a draft and you got all your friends and you don't know what the guy next to you is about to do, it brings in some excitement because, hey, this guy could possibly snipe me because he understands who I like in the league. Like, I'm wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Yeah.
If I wear this to the league, people are, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers because you like him. Well, that could cost them in the end, or it could be a bonus for me because now I can go on and get to the next favorite person that I like. It's just something that I'm kind of glad that we changed to Superflex.
Yeah, I like the Superflex.
Because it brings in more value at the quarterback position for those guys out there. Say you play standard leagues, I would look into this for your leagues next year, say you're a commissioner of yours, and just dive full in because there's 32 quarterbacks in the league that start. And if you say you play in only a 12-team league, your value is very small because you only get to start one quarterback.
Yeah.
But now you have all these options. It actually helps your bench because now you have quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, receivers that also could go into your second flex. So I really like the change we made this year.
Yeah, a lot of fantasy leagues are going to Superflex, and they have been over the last couple of years. I like it a lot better. It gets rid of the kicker position. You're only getting maybe 9 points, 10, 11 at a tops with the kicker, and allowing to have that other quarterback in there. I mean, you're talking about look at
amazing.
Look at Mahomes. He just had 49 points.
Yeah.
And then plus you got somebody else in that gets 40 points, and all of a sudden, you got almost 90 to 100 points just off of 2 players. I think it makes it more exciting.
It does.
And it also allows, if you're down in a match, in a matchup, and you're going into Monday night, and you still have that other quarterback, you have a possibility to come back and win.
Sure.
It's just more exciting. I like it.
I knew all about that this week. I actually played against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
It was a miracle that my team held on because I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So long story short, I was up by about 30 points, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire got 18, but Patrick Mahomes, I think I was up by just under 30 points. So Patrick Mahomes puts up 49 fantasy points in a PPR format, and I barely win by less than a point because of that situation. So it just shows that you're never out of it, like you said. If you got that right player in your second flex, which also, for me, I noticed that I drafted a lot of good receivers. So say there's a week, like I could have did this last week. I started in one of my leagues, I started Gardner Minshew, and he had a terrible game he only put up 9 points. So sometimes you got to read your roster, read your bench, and put in a receiver that might put up 15 to 20. So it just really fills the void of that nagging position at kicker, like you were saying. I mean, sometimes you'd have to pick up a different kicker, every week based on the defense they're playing,
Yeah.
because you don't want this guy to say you got the Seattle Seahawks kicker. If they score 4 touchdowns, you're only getting 4 points for the extra points.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about that now. So this is great. I just highly recommend that to anybody out there that's watching.
Yeah.
Superflex is the way to go. Let's keep this journey going.
All right, let's narrow down here. Who's your sit 'em for tight ends this week?
Sit them for tight ends. Let me see what
Mike
I got
Rankin
here.
says Wilkie doesn't get CEH anymore. Well, he certainly didn't get him.
I traded for him.
He didn't get him in the other league, but he did trade him.
Yeah, I can't believe you did that
him.
to me. You sniped him from me in the
I
draft.
sniped him right in the draft.
But you did the right thing. You did that, got the player, but then I sniped Deshaun Watson from you, and we made a trade before the season. It worked out great. I appreciate it. My sit-em of the week for tight ends is going to be another player in the Chicago and Indy game, but it's going to be on a total opposite side of the game. I'm going to sit Jimmy Graham this week, even though I know he's been great the last few weeks, and he has Nick Foles coming in as his new quarterback for the weeks upcoming. But the Indianapolis defense is incredible against tight ends, and I know it's early in the week. We've only had 3 weeks go so far, but the Indianapolis defense is only giving up 3 points a game into a fantasy tight end. So that's somebody that you just want to sit. I get it. I mean, if they get close to the end zone, he might get a target to maybe get, but I don't believe he's going to get a lot of catches in this game because Indianapolis is legit. Be careful playing any pass catchers or tight ends against this defense all year long.
Yeah, I actually really do agree with you here. This is a tough matchup for Jimmy Graham. He's a guy that has been at the top, early, a few years back, but I just don't like him here. I do agree with you. The Colts are giving up the fewest fantasy points against
It's
opposing
something
tight
else,
ends.
and it's hard to believe how less that they're allowing.
So yeah, I totally agree with you there. My this is going to be a tough one for you, but my my sit-em for this week is Darren Waller.
Wow, really? Who are they playing?
They're playing the Bills.
Yeah, I get it. That's understandable.
They're playing the Bills, and although he's been great thus far, I just don't like the matchup. He was shut down in Week 3 against New England. He only had 2 catches for 9 yards, and that was on 4 targets. So he's going to struggle again against this matchup because the Bills have a good defense, and I just don't like it here. So if you got somebody else, I'd start him here. I just don't like Darren Waller here in Week 4. So that's my sit-em for the week. And then let me
do one more sit-em for the tight end because I actually had this guy on my studs and duds list. Just real quick, we're going to sit also Tyler Higbee from the Los Angeles Rams because as you see, and I get it, they're playing against the New York Giants, which is not a great football team right now, but ultimately they're not great against wide receivers, the New York Giants. So given that fact, the Rams, who have great wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, they're going to be targeted in this game, and I do believe Tyler Higbee, which he didn't have a great week last week. I know in Week 2, I think he exploded. He had like 3 touchdowns. But I'm going to stay away from Tyler Higbee and that Rams tight end core this week also.
All right, this is my defense stardom for the week. We talked a little bit about it earlier. I like the Bucks. This week. I have them. I picked them off the waiver wire a few weeks ago. They did well for me last week, and I think they're going to do well again for me against the Los Angeles Chargers. You already talked about Herbert. I don't think he's going to have a strong week against the Bucks D. And Herbert's got 2 receptions and 4 sacks and 1 lost fumble already. And I've already gone out and said the Bucks' defense, pass defense, is real deal here. So I think that I like these guys here. If you got them in your lineup, start the Bucks.
Well, I'm trying to look up mine real fast because I actually forgot to put in my defensive stardom and sit-ems. Didn't know for sure if we were going to do that. But it's going to be easy. I'm going to look at this list, and let's go with... I've already talked about how I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are obviously going to play good against Tennessee. And I know this is going to sound sketchy, but I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I get it. I know that Tom Brady's there and they have changed the core of that system, but I truly believe with Chris Godwin out, he's going to have a struggle this week because if you watched the game last week, they had a awesome first half. Chris Godwin was in there. He's running his normal like slants, up and outs like Julian Edelman used to do for Tom Brady when he was at New England. But with him out and the way the Chargers played against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, you can't forget that. You have to look at that as an example of what they're capable of. So that coach knows that he can do that against Patrick Mahomes. What do you think he can do against a quarterback like Tom Brady, who's only a pocket passer? They're not going to blitz him. They're going to sit back and they're going to wait for him to make the mistake. So I would I would play the Los Angeles Chargers defense against Tampa Bay this week. That's my bold prediction.
And that's okay. You can have two defense. I think the defenses can still score,
Sure.
tons of points. So I'm okay with that. And so I don't disagree with you there. My sit-em for the week, of course, is going to be the New England Patriots. They're on the road against KC. We just saw what happened with KC and Baltimore. And even though New England was great against Miami in week 1, they had 3 interceptions, 1 sack, and they only allowed 11 points. But the Chiefs just carved up the Ravens, and the Ravens have one of the best defenses in the NFL right now. So
Right.
I don't think anybody's slowing Kansas City down right now. There's a lot of talk that these guys could go 16-0. I am on the train. I believe it. I am a big believer in Mahomes and Andy Reid and CEH right now. So I definitely sit the Patriots against the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you do have the Patriots defense, I think you should hold on to them because in week 5, then they're play Denver, and I like them there against Denver. So something to just kind of take into consideration if you're trying to pick somebody up off the waiver wire.
I like that. I mean, even though Bill Belichick's a great coach, he had a lot of injuries and a lot of key players opted out this year on their defense. I mean, they still have Stephon Gilmore, top 3 cornerbacks in the league. So he's going to limit players like Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. Bill Belichick's main priority is going to just slow them guys down. Never going to stop them, especially when you have offensive like that. So I do like that choice. Good pick, Jake.
We got a comment in the chat from Mike Dallaire. Either of you have James Robinson for your running back start of the week? Missed that segment. Mike Dallaire, yes. The answer is yes. James Robinson, start him this week.
Great pick.
Great pick this week if you have him. Even though we're in a super flex league, we'll keep it real short and simple on the kickers in case you play in other leagues. Start Mason Crosby if you're a kicker. If you're in a league with a kicker, I mean, Green Bay is just nasty. So what can I say? He's going to get plenty of extra point attempts. I like him there, and then I like to sit Gutowski from Tennessee going against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense nasty.
Right.
It might be tough for them getting into the red zone a lot. So I don't really, now that I'm down with Superflex, I don't even want to talk about kickers. But
yeah, me neither. I didn't even have that set and to talk about, so we'll pass that on for this week.
But it's in there for you. So that's pretty much everything we have. If anybody wants to drop a couple questions in the chat, we'll be happy to answer them for you right now. And
would you want to do a quick your prediction of the Super Bowl this early in the season for everybody out there?
Well, I'll definitely
or you
tell
want
you.
to wait till next week?
I'll definitely tell you AFC. I like Kansas City. I'm on the bandwagon, so I can't, whatever. Hate me if you like, but I just don't see anybody stopping them.
You can't. I mean, if they don't get any injuries, they stay healthy all year. I mean, it's something that it's just ultimately going to happen. I mean, Pittsburgh, yeah, I get it. They had Roethlisberger come back, but he's not the same person he used to be.
Now, a lot of people think Pittsburgh is the team that can hold them
because of their defense.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because it's the only team that I really see if they continue, remember what they did last year? I think
Yeah.
they were 9-7. Didn't have a quarterback at all. It's some backup quarterback, but their defense was carrying them in games where they were only allowing like 13 points here, 11 points, 10 points. It's like, where'd they come from? And it's because they picked up that safety from Miami Dolphins, Fitzpatrick. I think that's his last name.
Well, that's the quarterback.
No, it's his name's Fitzpatrick too. It's Minka Fitzpatrick is their
Gotcha.
safety that came from Miami that went to the Steelers. So my prediction, obviously, for the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that's a given fact. Anybody that goes against that is just stupid in my mind. Until you show that you can slow down the best, I mean, they're going to be the best regardless. So we just saw that on Monday Night Football. One of the best teams in AFC, the Baltimore Ravens, couldn't do it. So it's going to be hard for anybody else too. So let's move on to the NFC. Who do you like in the NFC to get there?
I mean,
I know it's early,
I
but
kind of like the Hawks, man. You know,
you're with me, aren't you?
I'm with you, man. I mean, I can't dispute it. I mean,
Sure.
I think if they can get the defense under wraps and they're playing a little bit better, I think they're going to be very, very tough. I mean, their offense is absolutely phenomenal, and Russell is playing probably the best football I've ever seen him play. He's come out publicly and said that he's in the best shape that he's ever been in,
Right.
and he looks it. I mean, he's getting around the field like with no issues whatsoever. So I really like them there. I don't know that if anybody else really in the NFC, you know, has the potential with the offense and the defense to really contend with them. But you know, we talk about this all the time, like, and this is one of the proponents that I've always come across. Like, not always does the best team win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
You know, the thing is, you just have to make the playoffs, and then anything can happen. And we've seen this before. I mean, look at the year that the Seahawks made the playoffs. I think they were 7-9,
Yep.
and then they win their first round
Yeah.
against Green Bay. They're not even supposed
I
to
remember
win.
that. That was the game where they got the onside kick.
Yeah.
And it changed the whole thing. It's like, what happened here? And it's funny that you bring up Green Bay because that's going to be my pick for the NFC right now.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
since you took my Russell Wilson, I love them, but I'm really skeptical of their defense. How long can they carry on and win these games by barely a touchdown? You know, it's going
Yeah.
to catch up to them. Now, can their defense learn through the process? Yes, I do believe that too. And maybe they bring in a guy, which they already did. They have Jamal Adams at safety. I do believe as the year goes on, he's going to get better, learning the system when they send him in there on a blitz. But the other secondaries, the cornerbacks, those are the ones that are going to have to step up when they do send blitzes. Just like last night when the Ravens, or Monday night, I'm sorry, when the Ravens blitzed Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
You got to make sure it don't burn you, because when it burns you, you're going to go down by 2 touchdowns, you know, yada, yada. So if the Seahawks don't make it, my second pick is right here. You guys can see it here first. Aaron Rodgers, who is back and back for good. Last year, nobody even talked about these guys until they got to the NFC Championship game. They were 13-3. Aaron Jones was the second top running back in the league, but nobody knows about it because they constantly talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
This team is for real, and especially on offense. They're averaging the most points in the game in the league right now, and I know it's only 3 weeks in, but that's something that's going to be consistent. And their defense is better than the Seattle Seahawks at this moment. They're not great. They're in the middle of the pack. They might be like, let's say, 12th, somewhere around there, 15th in defense in the NFC. But given that, along with the offense that you have, you don't have to be the best on defense. So that's why me and Jake like the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. That's going to be our NFC Championship game this year for sure. I don't see it any way else.
Well, there you have it, guys. From Get Some's mouth to your ears. Well, we thank everybody for tuning in and watching the Fantasy Football Huddle. This is episode 1. We hope that you picked up some awesome information. It certainly has been fun for us. Let's see. We got one more question before we go out. Somebody says, how about them Cowboys? Well, I'm telling you, boo to the Cowboys because they can't find a way to win. So I like Dak Prescott. If you got him, you got to start him. He's absolutely phenomenal. We said that earlier. But as far as them as a team, I don't see them getting around to being able to finish there. But
the only thing that goes positive for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll give you this, Mike Rankin, is they're in the worst division in NFL football.
For sure they are.
They can win their division. They can get to the playoffs. It just matters if they can get things rolling in the right direction if they get to the playoffs. That's the key.
Yeah,
Don't worry about your offense. Worry about your defense. Period.
All right, guys, tune in next Thursday for some more fantasy news. We'll talk about Week 4 and all the happenings around the NFL and give you some more picks to start in your fantasy teams. For Sean Wilkie, I'm Jake Lawson, J-Stacks, and you're watching the Fantasy Football Huddle. We'll see you next week, guys.
From the USA, it's the Fantasy Football Huddle with Sean Get Some Wilkie and Jake J-Stacks Lawson. Broadcasting around the world with up-to-date fantasy football news.
Here we go.